The place of baptism. Notice the place of baptism in church history. The first Christians baptized people like John. Did in the Jordan River. Later, when people worshipped, in larger house churches they used rectangular pools inside. After 300 AD, Christians built baptism houses separate from the church building. Those were copied from the burial martyria. They were round with 6 sides or 8 sides. The 6 sides help people remember Jesus died on the 6th day, Friday. The 8 sides symbolize the 8 members of Noah's family, saved in the flood. Jesus also rose from the dead on the 8th day, Sunday. Baptism joins us with Jesus in his death and resurrection. When people came for baptism, they knelt. Or stood in the baptismal pool. The worship leader poured water over their heads. The water was flowing like a river. During the Middle Ages, the church's large baptismal pools were replaced with smaller baptismal fonts, and less water was used. In the last 50 years, church leaders began to agree about 7 ideas. 1. People need to see the baptismal font. The best place inside near the worship entrance. As people entered and passed, they remembered their own baptism. When baptism happens, the whole congregation see and support. Second, the baptismal font needs its own regular space, with a special Christ candle with enough space for people to stand around. Pascal, a special Christ candle. Symbolize the Easter victory of Christ. Churches use that for baptisms and funerals often, during the season from Easter to Pentecost. That candle showing Christ stands on the right side of the altar. 3. More water is better. The Bible calls baptism a bath for a new birth. Immersion in a large pool is a beautiful symbol for Jesus' death and resurrection. Under the water, we were buried. Up from the water, we are raised from the grave to a new life. If the church has no pool, then a large font is good, and pour lots of water. 4. No cover on the font is good. People can see and touch. The water to help them remember their own baptism. Martin Luther wrote that baptism can mean to plunge completely into water. but when we bring infants, we pour water. From the font, baptism shows that God drowns our old sinful nature and raises us to a new life. By God's grace, baptism is very important. 5. Running water seems alive and is the best. Example: when people see and hear running water. Now remember, baptism's water is flowing a new life into his people. 6. Make baptism fonts with hard granite rock. That area around the top is made from slate or brick, and water cleans it easily. Shine a light on the font. 7. Don't make baptism a small happening using small fonts and small water. Large fonts with much water announce God's great victory defeating death and giving his people a new life. Luther teaches baptism is not water only. Baptism is water joined with God's promise, commanding us to bring new life to all the world.